Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight on student loans for children going from high school to college. My guest today is Maurice Benson. He's the Vice President and Division Market Manager for Wells Fargo. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, glad to be here.
No problem. So usually I start out my guests with where did you go to college?
Okay, I went to college at the University of Texas in Austin.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
So how does someone go from University of Texas, Austin, into banking?
Yeah, good question. I actually had a summer internship at a student loan guarantor, and that's kind of what got me into the business. In between there, I did some other work with banking at a local bank in Texas, so I've got some commercial banking background also, but really most of my education finance work started actually while I was in college working.
Oh, so how many years have you been at Wells Fargo, and how many years in banking?
Wells Fargo, I just had my 13th anniversary in February. Unusual, I know, to say with one company. And in banking total, now, I graduated in 92, so I'm like at 22 years. It seems like a long time, can't be that long.
Wow.
So quite a while, yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So now, I guess Division Market Manager, does that include student loans?
It does, it does. So my job is I manage a sales team that covers the Northeast United States, and my territory is from Virginia up through Maine. And what we do is we basically go out and build relationships with colleges and universities, and then the communities around those colleges and universities. And our goal is really to promote the brand of Wells Fargo and to let families and colleges and universities know that we have products and services to help students and families prepare and pay for college.
So now, how does a family get started with student loans? Do they go to the school first, and then do they go to the bank, or vice versa? How does it work?
It's a really good question, and if you talk to most families, just the idea of paying for college or preparing or saving is very confusing and overwhelming, and it should be. I mean, it's not necessarily the easiest, let's say, idea to put your arms around. You know, we hear all the stories about college costs going up, and you know, how much do I put aside, and do I go to a public school, do I go to a private school, what forms do I need to fill out, do I make enough money, do I not make enough money? What we always say is, one, it's all about timing. You know, when it comes to financial aid, the early bird gets the worm. So the earlier you do start the process, the better. And when I mean start the process, is starting to even understand it, to start doing some research around it. The best place to always start is the financial aid office or the school. Okay. And if you can find someone that at the school, like a financial aid counselor, that you can get to know and they can get to know you, that's even better. Because then you have someone who understands your situation, understands what you're trying to do, and can actually look out for you also.
So now, does the parent start as early as freshman or sophomore year of high school? When does the parent get started with even thinking about something like this?
And that's a really good question too. You know, these days it might not be too early to start, you know, in grade school when it comes to saving. If you want to plan ahead, tuition's not going to go down as far as we can tell, and you really can't plan far enough ahead when it comes to putting money aside, or at least coming up with a plan of how do you want to pay for the gap financing, or planning, having some kind of plan to pay for college, especially if you have more than one kid who is trying to go. But traditionally, the time that families really start thinking about paying for college is right now, let's say in September, when they have a senior who's about to start college in the fall. Okay. And traditionally that's not necessarily too late, but it makes it a little bit more difficult to start planning right now. So earlier the better.
So what does a parent do to go to a bank like Wells Fargo? Is it something where, do they have choices of different banks, or is it just one particular bank? Wells Fargo is the only bank that does student loans. How does that work?
So as far as student loans are concerned, several banks do offer private student loans, and private student loans cover what we refer to as gap financing, which is the part of student financing where the financial aid package doesn't cover the cost of tuition.
Okay.
So your school or the university will offer you a financial aid package that will have scholarships, grants, federal student loans, and if that doesn't cover the cost of tuition, then that's what we refer to as a gap, and that's usually where the private student loans come in.
So, do they have interest rates?
They do. Also, all student loans will have interest rates. The federal loans are fixed. Private loans can be fixed or variable, just depending on the institution. They have a range that can be anywhere as low as 2%, depending on the institution. They can go as high as 11, depending on the institution. It just depends on the loan. It depends on if you're an undergrad or a graduate student. It really just they're very varied. My suggestion there is just to do your homework and compare.
So is it difficult to get a loan? I mean, you hear a lot about the government, student loans are being defaulted on and that kind of stuff. So is it difficult to get a loan?
It depends on the type. So I don't believe it's hard to get a loan. So federal loans, there's no background not background, there's no credit check on federal student loans for students. Okay. So a student basically is eligible for a student loan as long as they qualify for the government's requirements, which is to be enrolled at least minimum of half time and be enrolled at a eligible university. So as long as those basic requirements are met, you're eligible for a loan, and the university can prove that you are enrolled, then you're pretty much good to go. And so that's a relatively easy loan to qualify for. Private loans, we do, for people who borrow private loans, there usually is a credit check. We usually require, or most banks require, a cosigner for private loans. Okay. That might be a little bit more difficult. What you will find that is for private loans, the rates can be a little bit more competitive for people who have good credit. Uh-huh. So again, I would suggest don't necessarily rule out private loans. For people with good credit, you can probably or usually find a competitive interest rate that could save you some money.
So it really depends on the bank
and
which type of interest that family might be able to get.
It does, and I think the way we look at it is, no two families are alike, no two situations are alike. Mm-hmm. We would never want to put a family into a loan that wasn't right for them. So it's all about choice. It's all about doing what's right for you. And there's so many different varieties of, let's say, financial aid that are available. Sometimes it's a combination of several different varieties that'll work. And that's what we would want. So when families come to Wells to get advice on this, we would want to sit down and see, what products and what resources we have that would fit that family. And if our product's not necessarily right, then it might not be, and that's okay. But we would want to let them know all the options that they have, so they can make the best and most well-informed decision.
Great. So tell me then, the family that takes out a loan, is there anything at the school that they might be able to get before they go to a bank to do something?
Yeah.
There's types of, let's say, merit loans or merit from the school? Or
and that's a really good question too. I think one of the big maybe fallacies, or one of the big mistakes that families make when it comes to the financial aid process is, don't assume that you don't qualify for financial aid. 2/3 of all families are receiving some form of financial aid today, which means most families aren't paying the actual list price to go to college. So don't assume just because your income is at some level that you don't qualify for financial aid. Also, don't assume because your income is at some level that you should not complete the FAFSA form. There's a belief that that people who are only looking to qualify for what we refer to as non-merit-based aid, which is need-based, need to complete the FAFSA form. When we talk about need-based aid, that would be your Pell Grant, your subsidized Stafford loan, for lower income. The reality is, like you were saying, from universities, are there other programs that they could qualify for? For most universities, merit-based aid, which would be your scholarships that could be awarded on GPA, or scholarships that could be awarded on service. Wow. still require that the FAFSA form be filled out to qualify for them. So if you don't fill the form out, you would never actually apply for it, or you'd never actually get the chance to even receive it.
So they have to fill out the form.
They have to fill out the form. And so that's usually step one. And like I said earlier, the early bird really does get the worm. So as soon as the federal form is available for the upcoming year, which is usually the January 1st or that first week in January for the upcoming academic year, the sooner you can fill that out and turn that back in and get the results, the better. You get in line, and the first come, first serve.
Really? Mm-hmm. And does it work like that at the bank as well?
So for the bank, it's not necessarily. We usually come in after the fact. Mm-hmm. So what I would tell families is it's good to come to us early if you're looking for just information, for resources. But the actual process, the actual going to looking for financial aid is actually through the school. So once you fill out the FAFSA form and you turn that information into the university, the university will send you a financial aid package. That will give you what they have determined your eligibility for from that university. And it will include your scholarships, it'll include grants, it'll include federal student loans if eligible, and then that package there will be given to you, and that's what you start comparing versus other universities. Now the question becomes, is that enough to cover the cost of tuition? And what's left between the cost of tuition and that package is what we refer to as gap financing. And that's usually where private loans come into play. So that's when they would contact us, or at least start shopping around.
So gap financing, would families have to add things like extracurricular activities that their students might be playing at the college,
you mean for scholarships?
or maybe they like to go out a lot, or maybe they're doing an apartment or renting somewhere. Is that like extra cost that they're incurring that gap is actually filling up?
So the gap financing part really is just, it's really the estimated cost of attendance to the university minus whatever financial aid they're eligible for. So it can be a lot of things.
Just extra money,
right,
and things like that?
So really when you look at it, the university could include housing, on-campus housing, off-campus housing, whatever numbers they're using to estimate the cost of the annual attendance.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you could use savings to cover that gap. A parent could go to the federal government and borrow a parent loan, which is a loan they take out in their name to cover that gap. You could use a 529 plan sometimes to cover that gap. Obviously, you could use private loans. Another good way is a lot of schools offer payment plans for low to no interest, where you can just make payments on that difference. So there's different ways to go about handling that.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, you were saying before, you're partnered with some colleges. Are there some colleges that Wells Fargo won't be able to deal with, or can they deal with everybody?
So we don't really partner with colleges. So the way we look at it is we 84-year public or private universities we do business with, and so we just tell parents or students just to contact us and just see. But if it's a 4-year public or private,
so it could be any college.
Any college, and we do business in all 50 states.
Oh, fantastic! So what would you advise parents to do? What's the process that they do when they get to Wells Fargo or any bank that they're looking at out there?
Yeah.
What's their first step? What's their process if that's the process that they want to take is a private loan?
Yeah, and so if that's the process, it's simply going to the website or calling. Most banks have either process. You can do it either way, and looking at the website and looking at the terms of the loan and looking at the interest rates and comparing and seeing which one's more favorable, and then from there, based on the comparison, deciding which private loan or which banks you would like to apply for. Advice would be to apply for more than one, because from a credit perspective, no two banks tend to have the same way of looking at it. So you'd want to apply and then compare what interest rates are given to you, and just make a decision based off that.
So is everything online? No paper anywhere? They don't go to the physical bank?
I would like to, I don't know for everyone. I would say most banks I know do not have paper applications anymore. I would hate to say that no one does. You never know. But
Right.
For us, absolutely, it's all online.
Great.
Yeah.
And what's the process? Is it a long process?
It's not.
Is it 4 pages, 10 pages? How many clicks are they going through to finish up an
That's a
application?
good question. So we've really updated our application recently last year to make it even more concise. I don't know exactly how many clicks because I think it scrolls again.
Okay.
But it's not a very long process. I do know that. We'll need to capture some student information, which would basically be where the student goes, what's to go to school, and any income they have if they've worked, and then some parent information too. They can do it at separate times if they want, which is great.
So they can save it and then come back to it another day.
Absolutely. So the student could fill out their part, and then on one day, and the parent could come in the next day and do it if they needed to. What's interesting about us is we will allow the parents and students to apply at the same time for both a variable rate and a fixed rate, and they can look at each rate, decide what's better, depending on their situation.
And do they get approved right away there?
Yes, and instant approvals, and yeah, pretty much on the spot. And we collect any information or documentation after the fact if we need it. But it's pretty much instantaneous. And then from there, it's just making the decision of which one fits your situation the best.
So how about if someone gets declined? What's the process then?
So if it depends. So on a federal loan, if you get declined, the student will get an option to take out additional unsubsidized Stafford loan. For us, if on a parent loan, or I'm sorry, for a private loan, you can request a second look, which means that we can go in and look at it again for our creditors and see if we've missed something. So it's never a guarantee, like a 100% decline from day one, and a lot of those, we can look at again and see what we can do.
So do parents come to Wells Fargo not only for student loans, but what other services does Wells Fargo give?
So from a college perspective, we offer a lot of preparing for college resources. If you can come to our website, which is wellsfargo.com/student, there's a lot listed there. One of the best tools that we offer is this financial aid journey, or the 5 steps plan. And what we did is we went out and talked to families about what part of the process or what part of the financial aid process did they stumble with the most, or did they have the hardest problem with? And it was what we were talking about earlier. It's like before you get to college, before you start the process, just understanding what am I getting into. And so we put together a quick 5-step program or 5-step plan just to show people ahead of time, here are the 5 steps of what you need to know or what you need to understand before you apply for college, apply for financial aid. And it's been very well received. And so you can download that. We can mail it to you or email it to you. You can read it right there. Last summer, we actually shot videos that are on YouTube. So each step has a video now, so you can watch the video at your own pace too.
Great.
And they've been well received. In fact, I want to say they at one point were the highest rated videos on the website produced by Wells Fargo. So they've been very well received. So, but again, it's really just an overview of the whole process of here's what you need to understand, here's what you need to do, here's what it all means.
So Wells Fargo does regular banking as well?
We do. And so we're a full service financial institution. So from a checking to savings to investments, anything the family might need, we can offer also.
And do they do 529 plans
Yes,
like
we
you
do.
were saying before?
Yes, we do.
Okay. So usually when someone starts that, do they start with very little money? How does that start?
Yeah, and I would say that with a 529 plan, the best thing to do there is to come in and actually talk to a Wells Fargo advisor or an investment person and just figure out what your options are. Okay. I think there's all different opportunities for the 529 plans depending on when you start. I think that really makes the biggest difference.
Wow, great. Now, Do you go into high schools to talk about all of this?
We do, we do. So the five-step program is, or the five-step journey is one of the things we use in high schools. Another thing we offer is College Steps, which is it's a program and a magazine that we offer out to high schools and high school counselors. And it really starts earlier, so like let's say freshman, junior in high school. And we send it out multiple times a year, and it gives out deadlines and tips on what you need to do throughout high school as you're preparing for college. So when you need to take your PSATs, when you need to think about looking at housing and stuff like that. Yes, and then to incent people to do it, we hand out $160,000, $1,000 scholarships every year for that particular program to people who apply.
Now, is that all across the country?
It is, all across the country. So all you need to do is go to collegesteps.com and you can enter your information, and really it's all internet driven, so as long as the email is valid, the information comes to you. And we do it for parents and we do it for students.
So anyone can apply for those scholarships?
So the
as well?
scholarships are for the high school students who are on the site, but yes.
And what's the amount that a high school student can be awarded?
$1,000. There's $161,000 scholarships.
Wow, that's
Yep.
fantastic. So now you're behind the scenes on all this. What is your duties of what you're doing behind the scenes to make this thing work? For all the different branches that you're covering, all the different states that you're covering, what are you actually responsible for?
So really what we're responsible for is promoting the brand, for lack of a better way to say it. So what we really do is we go out into the community. So if it's not visiting college and universities, it's visiting community organizations or going into high schools and colleges, and letting people know that yes, we do offer resources to help parents pay for college or plan for college, and those are my responsibilities to manage a team that does that.
So is the team actually going into the high schools?
Yes.
Do they do these career nights or college nights or whatever they are at the high schools?
We do. So we will go into colleges and high schools to do career nights and financial aid nights. We will also go into colleges and high schools and do financial literacy planning. That seems to be a big one right now, where we actually talk about, what is a checking account, what is a savings account, how do you understand credit and credit cards. So all of that falls under our umbrella.
Great. Now, do you also do a lot of things where you're discussing the student loans themselves to these parents?
We do. I mean, yes, we do. We'll talk about student loans. We'll talk about all kinds of financial aid. We don't necessarily want to talk only about the private loans or the student loans. Again, we think it's about choice, and we think that families need to be informed of all the choices they have so they can make an informed decision. So our goal is actually to talk about all the forms of financial aid and all the resources that we have. At the end of the day, it's all about knowledge. So knowledge is power. Yeah. And so the more informed a family is before they get to campus, before they go to school, the better decisions they can make.
Good. Now, how many branches are in the United States for Wells Fargo? Could families from all over the 50 states be able to go somewhere?
So we operate, as far as the student loan department is concerned, it does not matter. Any four-year public or private in any of the 50 states, they can borrow a private loan from Wells Fargo and go. And from federal loans, it's the same argument.
And if someone wants to contact someone, how do they do that?
So they can either call the number, but the best thing to do is go to our website, which is www.wellsfargo.com, and then /student. And all of our Wells Fargo student loan products and services would be listed there, and they can start. That's where I would start.
And if they wanted to go to the branch, could they find the branches there as well?
Yeah, so if they go to the branch, they can talk to any banker or any teller at the branch and just make a request that, have a student or I am a student who's looking to go to college, and I would just like to gather some more information and ask some questions. And if the banker will help, if not, they know who to contact to get some help.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So, is there anything that a parent has to do other than applying online? Is there anything else that they're looking at?
Really, well, For the private loan, or
Yeah.
that's well, they just need to prepare. So to complete the FAFSA form, you need your tax information.
Okay.
So the earlier you can get your tax information, the better.
Okay.
If you really want to beat the timing, in other words, get it in early, it's okay to use your previous year's tax information for the FAFSA if you think your income hasn't changed very much, and then you can update it as necessary. So a lot of people do that. So planning is the key. If you think you're going to do that, just have your previous year returns available. For us, it's really just applying and making sure everything's in order there, and that's about it.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, we're coming to the end of our show.
Okay.
So usually what I ask my guests for the last question is, what advice would you give parents? What's encompassing of everything?
Encompassing of everything, I think financial aid is really all about one, and I said this earlier, don't assume that you don't qualify. So everyone, regardless, should fill out the FAFSA because it's for most universities and colleges, that's what they determine everyone for, or what they use to determine financial aid for everyone, regardless. So that would mean merit aid or need-based aid. So everyone should complete the FAFSA regardless. And then remember that it's all about timing. So pay attention to the priority deadlines, pay attention to the deadlines, and make sure you get your information in on that by those times. And then when you're comparing financial aid packages, the out-of-pocket's really what you're looking at, your out-of-pocket costs. So don't always assume that a private school is going to be more expensive than a public school. Because when you look at the package, your out-of-pocket could be actually less expensive for the private, just depending on the package you get. So apply at multiple schools, compare, and knowledge is power. So the earlier you start and the more you learn, the better you'll be.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. And thank you for watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.